Hey guys, it's Miss Bridget from Pickfair, back again with another Fablehaven read-along. So last time we started off chapter 3. We finally got to see Seth in the forest and see what he was up to while Kendra was investigating the playroom for locks to put her keys into. So Seth was in the forest and he ended up finding this trail that led to this really old shack that had been there for a while because it's covered in plants. And whenever he went to investigate the shack, he found that an old woman was in there and and it looked like she'd been living there for a really long time. But she was living there and she had a rope covered with knots on it that she was chewing on. It was like she was trying to untie them or something, but she wasn't tied up to the rope. So it was kind of weird. But then Seth begins asking her questions and they start talking for a little bit. And he asks the old woman if his grandfather knows that she's living on his property because this is still part of Seth's grandfather's property. And she says, yes, he does know that she's living there on his property. So that's where we left off. Let's get started again. Let's see what happens next. The rope she had chewed lay on the dirt floor. It had one other knot besides the one she had been gnawing. Why were you biting the rope? Seth asked. She eyed him suspiciously. I don't care for knots. Are you a hermit? You could say that. Come inside and I'll brew you some tea. I better not. She looked down at her hands. I must look frightful. Let me show you something. She turned and crouched behind the stump. A rat ventured a few steps out of a hole in a corner of the shack. When she came back from behind the stump, the rat hit. The old woman sat with her back to the stump. She held a little wooden puppet about 9 inches high. It looked primitive, made entirely of dark wood, with no clothes or painted features. Just a basic human figure with tiny gold hooks serving as joints. The puppet had a stick in its back. The woman set a paddle on her lap. She began making the puppet dance by bobbing the stick and tapping the paddle. There was a musical regularity to the rhythm. What is that thing? Seth asked. A lumberjack, she replied. Where's his axe? Not a lumberjack, a limberjack. A clog doll, a jigger, dancing Dan, shuffling Sam. I call him Mendingo. He keeps me company. Come inside and I'll let you give it a try. I better not, he said again. I don't see how you could live out here like this and not be crazy. Sometimes good people grow weary of society. She sounded a little annoyed. You happened upon me by accident? Out exploring? Actually, I'm selling candy bars for my soccer team. It's a good cause. She stared at him. I have my best luck in the rich neighborhoods. She kept staring. That was a joke. I'm kidding. Her voice became stern. You are an impudent young man, and you live with a tree stump. She gave him a measuring glare. Very well, my arrogant adventurer. Why not test your courage? Every explorer deserves a chance to prove his mettle. The old woman withdrew into the shack and crouched behind the stump again. She returned to the doorway holding a crude narrow box made of splinter wood, wire, and long jutting nails. What's that? Place your hand inside the box to prove your valor and earn a reward. I'd rather play with the creepy puppet. Just reach inside and touch the back of the box. She shook it and it rattled a bit. The box was long enough that he would have to reach into his elbow in order to touch the back. Are you a witch? A man with a brave tongue should support his words with courageous acts. This seems like something a witch would do. Stand by your loose words, young man, or you may not have a pleasant journey home. Seth backed away, watching her closely. I better get going. Have fun eating your rope. She clucked her tongue. Such insolence. Her voice remained soothing and calm, but now held a menacing undertone. Why not step inside and have some tea? Next time, Seth moved around the shack, and not taking his eyes from the ragged woman in the doorway. She made no move to pursue him. Before he moved out of her sight, the woman raised an arthritic hand with the middle fingers crossed and the others bent awkwardly. Seth's eyes half shut, she appeared to be murmuring something. Then she was out of view. On the far side of the shack, Seth plunged through the tangled undergrowth back to the path, glancing over his shoulder all the way. The woman was not chasing him. Just looking back at the ivory-covered shack made him shiver. The old hag looked so wretched and smelled so foul. There was no way he was sticking his hand in her weird box. After she'd offered the challenge, all he could think about was the learning in school of how shark teeth angled inward so fish could swim in, but not swim out. He imagined the homemade box was probably full of nails or broken glass, set at cruel angles for a similar purpose. Even though the woman was not following him, Seth felt unsafe. Compass in hand, he hurried along the path toward home. Without warning, something struck him on the ear, barely hard enough to sting. A pebble the size of a thimble dropped to the path at his feet. Seth whirled. Something had thrown the little stone on him, but he saw nobody. Could the old woman be stealthily following him? She probably knew the woods really well. Another small object bounced off the back of his neck. It was not as hard as a heavy stone. Turning, he saw an acorn whistling toward him, and he ducked. The acorns in the pebble had come at him from opposite sides of the path. What was going on? From above came the sound of wood splitting, and a huge limb fell across the path behind him, a few leaves and twigs swishing against him as it passed. If Seth had been standing 2 or 3 yards back along the path, a branch thicker than his leg would have clubbed him on the head. One look at the heavy limb, and Seth took off down the path at a full sprint. He seemed to hear rustling sounds coming from the shrubbery on either side of the scant trail, but did not slow down to investigate. Something caught a firm hold on his ankle, sending him tumbling into the ground. Sprawled on his belly, a cut on one hand, dirt in his mouth, he heard something rustling through the foliage behind him, and a strange sound that was either laughter or running water. A dry branch snapped like a gunshot. Not looking back for fear of what he might see, Seth scrambled to his feet and dashed along the path. Whatever had tripped him had not been a root or a stone. It felt like a strong cord stretched across the trail, a tripwire. He had noticed no such trap previously on the path, but there was no way the old woman could have done it even if she had started running the moment he passed out of her view. Seth raced past the place where the trail forked and sprinted back the way he had come. He scanned the trail ahead for the wires or other traps. His breathing became labored, but he did not slow down. The air felt hotter and more humid than it had all day. Sweat began to dampen his forehead and drip down the sides of his face. Seth remained alert for the little pyramid of rocks that would mark where he should leave the path. When he reached a gnarled little tree with black bark and thorny leaves, he halted. He remembered the tree. He had noticed it when he intersected the path. Using the tree as a reference, he found the spot where he had built the pyramid of rocks, but the rocks were gone. Leaves crunched behind him off to one side of the trail. Seth glanced at his compass to confirm that he was heading west and ran into the woods. He had walked this way at a leisurely pace, examining toadstools and unusual rocks as he went. Now he tore through the forest at full speed, undergrowth clawing at his legs, branches whipping past his face and his chest. Finally, panting, the energy of his panic wearing thin, he glimpsed the house up ahead through the trees. The sounds of pursuit had dwindled to nothing. As he stepped out into the yard under the sun, Seth wondered how much of what he had heard had actually been something chasing him, and how much had been invented by his flustered imagination. Alright, so that looks like a good stopping point. We'll pick up from that spot next time. It's getting pretty good, or at least I think so. It's getting really interesting, so I want to keep this going. But I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Bye.